Hi, Dr. H here with Family Centered Parenting. Today I want to talk about something, the challenges that families and children are faced by having an elite athlete child in the family. Now, obviously, if we have a budding Tiger Woods or a budding Serena Williams or a budding Patrick Mahomes or a Michael Phelps in the family, gee, what a wonderful thing to have a child have that kind of fame and achieve that kind of success, both financially and recognition. What a wonderful thing. Yeah, of course. But let's face it, not that many of our kids, even if they're elite athletes, really climb to the top of that pyramid. That's why they call it a pyramid, because it's very steep at the top, and very few get to that really top level. However, there are many programs and for young people who are elite athletes. They're excellent. And we have to make a decision about a family. Do we want to embark upon that journey? And what reminded me of this was I was on the highway, and in front of me was a minivan with a bumper sticker. And on the bumper sticker, it says, "I have no life. My daughter plays AAU basketball." Wow. There clearly a parent is expressing the fact that the sacrifices that they have made for their child being an elite athlete is a sacrifice for them as a human being, as an adult. So that's something that we need to take into account when we consider how far we want to go down that path of having an elite athlete. And today, let's face it, if you want your child to truly excel and climb to those highest levels, regardless of sport, it's not just a seasonal thing. Kids are involved with summer camps, extended years, even if they're in high school. Just participating on that high school team is barely enough to be recognized for colleges, to coaches, etc. It is a full-time job for the family today when you have an elite athlete. I've seen parents when I'm traveling, families on the road that are staying in a hotel, a motel. They just traveled to a distant site for a team sport that is an elite level, that's a regional kind of competition. So a lot goes into, and those of you out there who do have an elite athlete child know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think we have to ask ourselves some basic questions when we do have an elite child and how to handle it. The first question is, how much competition is too much? And let's face it, we live in a culture where we reward competition. We think the end all and be all of success is competition. Heavy competition brings out the best, etc., etc. Well, I think that's overdone personally, and I think there's a lot of examples to show it can be easily overdone. Sometimes cooperation becomes even more potent than competition, and we know the stress of hypercompetition. We know kids get burnt out. We know they have to live with the expectations of family members, siblings. I'll give you one example. When I was an elementary school principal, I ran one young man who was in a Little League, a very talented pitcher in Little League. And during Little League season, every 4 or 5 days, I think was the frequency, he would wind up in the nurse's office complaining of stomach aches, not feeling well. And we were trying to figure out, there had to be some kind of pattern to this. We talked to the parents and that. We found out those were the days where he was scheduled to pitch in a Little League game. The stress of anticipating and having to perform and pleasing parents and relatives when he went out to the game was actually causing physical damage to this young man. So let's face it, hyper competition can too much. Another example, in the Netherlands, and frankly, per capita, the athletes from the Netherlands probably win more gold medals in the Olympics than maybe any other country when we consider how small a size they are. Do you know they ban competition in up until the children are, I believe, to 10 to 12 years old? In other words, no scorekeeping, everybody participates, and no real competition in their events until they reach those early preteen years. Why? Because we don't want to discourage kids, we don't want them to burn out, we want them to try different sports, come into their own a little later. And you know what? Successful, because on the highest levels of competition, the Netherlands athletes do extremely well. And also, we find the adults in society in the Netherlands participate in recreational activities, far less obesity than in America, because they felt more comfortable participating without being judged, and now have developed lifetime enjoyment of participating in sports. So let's face it, we can overdo competition. The next, we have to make sure coaches have a huge influence. You know, coaches are self-regulated in style. We got to make sure that we have an elite athlete child. Are they getting the right amount of coaching that fits their personality? You know, some coaches are really hard-nosed, you know, very strict. I'm the coach, do it my way or the highway, no excuses. Well, some kids will do well with that, some kids will not. And we know today, with especially with our modern athletes in college and professional ranks, that coaches who listen and are a little bit more concerned with relationships have gotten better performance out of their athletes than the old school, very strict type of coach. And the other question we have to ask ourselves, are we really listening to what our children want? Are we projecting? Are we using our own either unfulfilled dreams or successes or lack of success we had? Are we putting that on our kids? Are we making sure that they really enjoy and want to participate? Or are they just doing this to please mom and dad because they expect that's what mom and dad wants? We have to be really careful that we know our child's temperament and that we're really listening and making sure they're as devoted to the sport or to being an elite athlete as we as parents are devoted for them to do that. Also, are we really truly assessing the impact on family life? What about the needs of the non-athletic children? So if we're out on the road and going to tournament, what about the child who's not participating? Are they going to feel left behind? Are they going to feel that, Juanita gets all of the attention because she's this great soccer player and I'm the nerd in school and, I get good grades, but no one seems to pay attention. All they care about is, cheering Juanita on when she's, scoring goals in her soccer game. So we have to think about the dynamics among the siblings in the family, how they're experiencing having a sibling who's an elite athlete. And, what if you have two kids who are elite athletes in different sports? Talk about being torn. You're going to be running around from one competition to another, especially in relatively the same season, or with camps and what about expenses? It can cost a fortune. We know of families, especially I know in the ice skating community, and gymnastics community, they pick up the whole family, move to a new town because there's a coach or a gym or an elite academy that they want their child in. My God, and what if you have two children with two different sports and they're both invited to elite academies? How do you manage that? Is one parent going to go with one and another parent going with? Yeah, some families get divided that way. So huge amount of sacrifices that have to be made. And, How do we handle the potential criticism and gain support from extended families? We have maybe grandparents. Some of them might be more gung-ho or less gung-ho and worrying about their child. Are we doing the right thing? How are we handling that? And then, frankly, when do we say enough is enough? Is this really the path? Am I giving up too much? Is my child giving up too much to pursue this? I'll give you another personal story. When my older son was a youngster, I think, early grades, maybe 7, 8 years old, he started gymnastics, and he was a good athlete and was doing very well. Immediately, the coaches at the gym said, wow, we have a traveling team and we'd love to put him on and go to some of the regional competitions. So your first instinct as a parent, oh my God, I don't want to get in the way of that. Absolutely. So I went to the first couple of meets, wound up sitting in the bleachers in a gym somewhere the whole Saturday, and my kid performed maybe for 2 minutes on an entire day. I'm a busy person. My wife's working. We're both working parents. We're busy. We have chores. We have things to do. And there we are spending the majority of our weekend sitting in the stands at some gym waiting for our child to do something for 20 seconds. I said, wait a minute. This makes no sense. And frankly, having a discussion with my son, we pulled him out of that traveling team, said, you'll go to your gymnastics classes, enjoy it, but I'm not giving up. It's too much. For what potential goal? I mean, realistically, how many of these kids who are getting all this hyperattention are going to climb to the top of that pyramid? And even if they do, wow, they went to the Olympics. They still have to have a life. They still have to have a profession. They still have to develop skill set and to make them successful human beings. So these are questions we have to worry about. How do we prevent burnout, anxiety, and depression? Can too much participation lead to injuries? Obviously, there's a lot of attention now on football injuries, but any sport, soccer, we're worried about, can they get concussions from headers and soccers? We've learned that young limbs can be overstressed in the early stages, especially in early adolescence. We can be doing permanent damage to ligaments and tendons for too much competition and too much athletic performance at those ages. Can specialization in one sport hinder future success? So maybe we start out in today's world, if a kid is not devoted to a sport by the time they're 9 or 10 years old, God forbid they want to start a new sport at 14 and 15, there's no place for them. Because by that time, the sport world has sorted itself out, and the only kids who are left playing are the elite athletes. So if a kid wants to start out with a sport at 14 and 15, there's no place for them. I've known communities where you have a huge amount of participation in sports through 8, 9, 10 years old in recreational leagues, and the minute they start forming the traveling teams, the kids who don't make the traveling teams say, why should I play? I'm not on a traveling team. And they give up completely and sit home and get fat and play video games all day. And what are we doing to them? We're not allowing them to just enjoy. Who are they playing the sport for? Is it to please us or for themselves? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And remember, whose journey is it anyway? Are my needs as an adult separate from my child's needs? Are we having our child living through our dreams and frustrations? What if a husband or wife is not always in agreement? So we have maybe a woman who's really pushing for a child because she played tennis and didn't quite get there and could see her child as a great tennis player and wants them to be elite and pushing. And the husband said, well, maybe it's too much, or we're giving too much. I don't want to spend every weekend at tennis matches all over the place. It can cause problems in a couple. So And then how do we continue motivating? Our children are going to have ups and downs in their sport. It's a tough determination to make that decision. Should we pull the plug on that sport? Should we say enough is enough? Or should we say, let's go, I know you had a bad day, it's time to pick yourself up, get back out there, you made a mistake today, you struck out 2 times, well, it doesn't mean tomorrow you won't, and you encourage them. It's a tough call. And finally, be realistic. Some of these elite sports activities are a tremendous financial burden. Just the equipment alone, sports like hockey, lacrosse, just the gear that these kids require, skiing. I mean, these are expensive sports to keep your kid going. Families go into debt up to their necks to just be able to continue to support. We got to ask ourselves the question, is it really worth it? Now, I'm not going to say do not support your child, do not encourage your child as an elite athlete, of course. But be realistic. Ask yourself these questions. Make sure you answer them properly for the health of the family. Make sure you're communicating your doubts openly. Make sure your children feel comfortable communicating their doubts and fears so they can be reassured and they feel when things aren't going right that they can come to mom and dad and voice their feelings. Maybe they want to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And if you have a good, solid relationship with good open communication, you can hear that and either go along with it or figure out a way to keep them motivated in their sport. Anyway, for now, I'm going to sign off. And again, this is Dr. H, author of Family Centered Parenting. And you can pick up this book on our website, FamilyCenteredParenting.com, or on Amazon. So I encourage folks to keep watching our videos, pick up the book, and hope to see you again. Take care.